Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, we're going to go ahead and take a hands-on look at the upcoming Uniden R9. This is Uniden's custom installed radar detector and laser jamming system. Now, I've done a number of videos kind of introducing the R9 itself, and you can take a look at those videos if you like. But now we've actually got the system here installed in the car. I've actually been running R9's different variants for the past 3 years or so, different hardware and software versions. And at this point, it looks like the launch is going to be coming soon. They haven't officially announced the new MSRP or exact release date yet. But it looks like now we've got retail hardware and what should be the final kind of initial public firmware. And so with that said, we've got the all clear to go ahead and start sharing some initial preliminary information here about the R9. And so with that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look now here at this new system.
Rear laser Dragon full size.
All right, so starting off first with the radar portion, you can kind of think of it as like a custom installed version of their windshield mount R8. That said, there are a couple differences that we've been seeing, particularly when it comes to performance, features, and UI. Now, in beta testing, again, we've seen some differences with different hardware and software versions, and now that we've got kind of like what should be the final public firmware, or I guess initial public firmware, we're kind of redoing a lot of the testing just to kind of see what things are looking like now, again, because things have been changing over time. And then once we've got all of our testing done, the system is available for sale, etc., I'll be sharing kind of my full review here of this system. In this video, I just kind of want to go over some of the cool new features here that we have that actually aren't available on some of the other detectors, and we'll take a closer look at the laser jamming system too. Now, to start off though, I want to go over one of my favorite new features that's been introduced here, and it's some improvements specifically to the K-block features here on the R9. And so just like your windshield mount detectors, you've got a number of different K-block options. You've got your 24.199-ish one, common for like Hondas and Acuras. You've got a K-block 2 option here for like 24.169-ish or so, another common frequency range. And now we have a third option here dedicated just to your Mazda CX-5. So I'm really glad to see they've added this as well. Now, if these aren't sufficient, they've now added 5 custom K-block options that you can go in here and manually program yourself. So if there's maybe another frequency range that you want covered, you can go in here and adjust your signal strength. You can go and start programming kind of like what frequency range do you want it to apply to. So go in here, maybe I'm just going to like make one up here. So this to there, for example. And you can go in, of course, and adjust all the different options you want to really fine tune it and set it exactly where you want. And so that can be helpful. So let's say, for example, the Mazda CX-5, maybe you want to like tighten this range a little bit and you're like, hey, 24.121, maybe that's a little low. I want to go and maybe just go to like 24.123 to 124. Cool, you can do that. Additionally, you can control more options that you can get from the windshield mount. So for example, if you want to go in here, we've got this option like maybe only applying to weak signals, but now you've actually got a little bit more control. You can now adjust for like maximum signal strength signals. You can have it only mute signals, or you can actually set the exact signal strength now that the detector has to wait for the signal to get to before that signal can actually punch through. So instead of just your generic weak option, now you can set exactly how strong the signal needs to get before the detector will begin alerting. Same thing here for the direction. You can have the K-blocks apply to just maybe your front signals, rear signals, or both directions. Now, what if you're driving around and there's a car up ahead that's causing your R9 to false? Well, it turns out there's a new feature that's been added too that makes it a lot easier to create a custom K-block just for that specific car. I'm going to demo it just by triggering the detector here with the Bushnell. And when I do that, you're going to go ahead and see the alert here on screen. You can see the signal frequency. You can see there's another signal that's showing back behind me with the rear antenna. But the primary signal strength is actually for the signal up ahead. So you can see the front arrow there. It's also being muted by my low-speed muting, of course. But let's say for the sake of discussion, you want to go ahead and create a K-block based on this specific signal. To do that, you're just going to press and hold the mark button here like this. And it's going to go ahead and create a custom K-block option. So as you can see, it showed you on screen exactly what it created. And if we go into the menu again, you can see that now it's got an option here for 24.150 to 160, basically 5 megahertz either side of that K-band signal that you saw before. And then if there's anything in here you want to edit, of course, you can go in and adjust the signal strength. It was set up for a really strong signal here, so as you can see, level 5. But you can go and, of course, adjust the direction for any of this kind of stuff. You can adjust the exact frequency range. Maybe you want to tighten it up a little bit. You can go in here and adjust all this stuff as needed for your specific K-block. This mute button trick, or sorry, mark button rather, is going to be designed to help you go ahead and create an initial K-block that you can use or just go ahead and customize as needed. And this feature, it's actually really similar to those of you guys who are familiar with the NetRadar DSP. It has a feature called the Assisted Radar feature. It was introduced back in 2019, and it's basically the same idea here. There are a couple differences, like this one supports 5 K-blocks versus that one supports 16. And that one you have to actually have your phone initially to do the training, then you can disconnect your phone, versus the Uniden, like this is going to be completely standalone. So of course there's maybe some differences here and there, but it's actually pretty similar to what NetRadar did with their Assisted Radar feature. Or filter, I guess. Either way, though, this is a really cool option, and I'd love to see kind of these additional K-blocks come to some of their windshield mount detectors as well. I'm guessing that at some point they will. I haven't heard anything from Uniden about that, but I think it was something that would make sense to kind of bring over to other detectors, but this is first being introduced here on the R9. Now, speaking of other detectors, let's go ahead and take a little closer look here at the UI and the display of the R9, because this is going to be a little bit different from what we've seen from other detectors. So first off, when you get an alert, it's going to go ahead and look like this. Go ahead and just mute it here real quick. And as you'll be able to see here on screen, we've got the frequency, the band, the signal strength that says that it's muted. And you can see we've actually got multiple signals here going on because I'm kind of overdriving the system with the radar gun so close to the detector. But as you can see, we can display additional signals right over there in the all threat display. And we've got our arrows over here on the right side of the display. I do find that these arrows work best if it's a little bit shadier or darker. The reason I say that is it can be a little bit difficult to see in bright sunlight because of the fact that there's kind of this little white background here behind the white LEDs for the arrows. And so for that reason, if you compare them to the display of some other custom install detectors, I actually find those to be a little bit easier to read when it comes to immediately telling what direction the different signals are coming from. Additionally, in terms of display size, it's going to have the smaller display, the same as the R4, not the bigger one as what you've got for the R8. And so if we go ahead and trigger both of these here real quick, you can see that they're going to work a little bit different. This one has a nice big arrow right there to make it super easy to tell exactly where the signal is coming from. With this detector, we've got kind of just a small little arrow right there. Not as easy to tell as with the R8. Arrow direction, of course, is going to bounce around all over the place here because I've got the gun so close to the detector. Let's go ahead and mute these real quick. So mute both of them. But either way, as you can see here, the arrows I think are actually bigger and easier to read on the R8 compared to the R9. Now that said, we do have the option to actually customize the alert display. I've been showing you here what it looks like with alert display number 2, but instead we can go ahead and flip on over to display number 1. If you do this, it's actually going to change how the display looks and actually give you some additional arrow information on screen. So if I go ahead and just demo this real quick, I'll trigger the detector. And just go ahead and mute it here real quick. It's going to go ahead and show you the signal strength for both the front and for the rear antenna simultaneously. I find this to be a little bit confusing in practice because it doesn't actually tell you if the signal is ahead or behind or anything. And you can see additional signals will actually show up here on the side of the display. It's still going to show you with the primary arrows right there, kind of like where your main signal is. Is it up ahead or back behind? So you can get some additional arrows here on screen, but it doesn't really help with the directional information. You can see signal strength for both front and rear simultaneously. I have noticed some weird thing about this detector is it kind of is like 2 detectors slapped together. It doesn't really show you just like one signal, you know, if is it stronger ahead or behind and overall signal strength. It kind of splits it and shows you front and rear together. And you'll also notice this if we switch back over to alert display number 2 again, like before. When we have it set up here like this, when you've got your signals, we'll just mute it. It's going to show you both front and rear simultaneously, even though it's just one signal and it's not currently being overdriven. That's different from what we see with other detectors. Now, when you're passing a source, the arrows actually do a good job of transitioning from front to rear, letting you know that, well, you've passed the source. But it is still going to show you 2 signals simultaneously like this. There isn't really a way to have it show you just one signal the way you have with other detectors. And so for this reason, again, it looks like it's kind of 2 independent detectors, and it's just displaying both detectors, if you will, on screen at the same time. Now, that said, I do find this mode to be helpful if you're driving around and you pick up a weak signal at a distance. In this situation, only one of the antennas can pick up the signal, and so you're only going to see one of the arrows. This can be helpful for both legitimate radar, both front or rear, as well as for picking up BSM signals, which are also oftentimes pretty weak signals too. Where this mode starts to struggle more is if both antennas are picking up the signal, so maybe you get hit with instant on at close range, or you're just getting closer to the source and passing the source. And in those situations where you're trying to determine the signal direction or tell when you're passing the signal, that's when it's going to be harder here with this arrow style. Now, in the detector, you do have the ability to customize the arrow color. And so if you want to adjust for different, for laser or for different radar alerts, you can independently control the front and rear arrow color. This is only for the display color, not for these arrows there. So again, we can maybe set rear right now is set up to blue. And so for that reason, if we've got it set up to show front and rear arrows simultaneously, when you get the alerts, Just go ahead and mute it here again. You'll notice that the front arrow is going to show up in red when it shows it, and the rear one is going to show up in blue. I would love to see the ability to maybe customize the arrow color here to make it easier to read and to show different colors depending on direction or band or whatever else, but this is always going to be white here on those arrows. Now, I think the best solution for this is to actually make sure you install it with the external LED cable that comes with the R9 as well. And I'll go ahead and slide the external LED right here next to the arrow display so you can see how the two of them interact. But if we go ahead and trigger an alert, it's going to light up like that. I'll just mute it here real quick. And as you can see, it's going to be displaying that it's a front signal. And so the arrow is going to be lighting up, or the LED is going to be lighting up in red. I'll try to switch it over to a rear signal like this, fire the gun backwards, and you should be able to actually see it switch over to blue when it's reporting it to be a rear signal. Now, what's kind of nice is these colors are actually going to be corresponding here to the red for front and to the blue here for rear. Additionally, this is going to work for laser alerts too. Now, as far as these arrow colors that I mentioned earlier, remember how we saw that we could actually adjust the like front laser colors, maybe independently from radar? This is only going to apply to the alerts on screen, not to the alert LED. So if we do something like maybe set front laser to something different, like green, for example, and if we do like rear laser to maybe something that's also pretty different, yellow, we'll go ahead and lock that in here. And now when we get our alerts, you can see that that front arrow is going to be green on the display. We'll just go ahead and, again, mute it here like that. But that alert LED is still going to be lighting up in red. If we switch over to rear, same sort of thing. It's going to go ahead and switch over. Now the rear arrow is going to be yellow, and the external LED is still going to be blue. So those kind of arrow colors are just here for the display, not for the alert LED. Now, as far as laser, though, let's go ahead and maybe take a closer look at that here next. Now, as far as the head design, the laser jammer heads, they're going to look pretty standard. It's kind of the same thing we're used to from other manufacturers too. It's going to come with 6 heads out of the box, so you could do your standard like 3 front, 3 rear, or maybe more in the front, more in the rear as needed. It's customizable. You've got short cables here running out of the back with these twist lock connectors like that, and these are going to run to your extension cables, so kind of waterproof connectors, and these cables are going to run back the length of the vehicle to connect to kind of like the main laser box, plug into the CPU. Now, again, as far as the head design, same kind of thing. Like I've got it here with a TMG setup, so you can see size-wise, it's going to be very comparable to the new TMG heads. This is one of the new Gen 4 heads for their Alpha 17, the new one that came out. As you can see, like with the Uniden versions, there's little screws here, so I think maybe it's not quite as aesthetically pleasing to have the screw visible like that. But in terms of performance, I guess that's the main thing that matters. I'll be covering performance in like other videos, particularly in the full review. I know I'm going into a fair amount of detail here in this video, even though it's kind of like an overview. We've tested kind of different variants here of the jammers, different iterations. It's the same jammers that are going to plug into their windshield mount radar detectors, the R4 and the R8. And again, now that we've got kind of like the final firmware and whatnot, we're all kind of redoing a lot of our testing for both radar and laser. So all that stuff is to come. But in terms of like head design, same idea as what we've got with other systems. And then if you turn the voice on for the R9, that's going to let you to not only visually ID the gun when you get shot, as you saw on screen, but you can also have it audibly announce what gun you're getting hit with too.
Front, laser, custom. Rear, laser, stalker. Front, laser, dragon full size.
And then as far as your different settings, we've got options to control how the jammer works. You can have it set up here in detection only. You can have it jam indefinitely. This is what we use for testing, so it never disarms. You don't use it in practice. In practice, you're going to want to set it up into pulse mode. And for this is going to give you basically your auto JTK feature. And then you're going to have the option to go in and choose how long it jams for until it disarms. So you can just go in here and adjust the different options. You've got anywhere from 3 seconds all the way up to 10 seconds. The default here is 4. You can also choose then how long it takes for the system to rearm. So after it disables itself, it can be off for 30 seconds before it rearms, or you can go all the way up to 60 seconds. And then you're also able to go in and adjust how each of the individual heads behave. So if you want, all 6 heads to be set up for the front or rear, or for receive against DragonEye, or transmit against DragonEye, you've got independent control here for all 6 of the different heads to just set them up the way that you want. And so that's a look here at kind of the new aspects here of the R9 compared to your previous gen Uniden. So things like the new display, UI, arrows, laser functionality, K-block stuff, etc. There's obviously a lot more I can say about it. Stay tuned for more testing and the full review and all those details and whatnot. But in this video, I just kind of wanted to go over the main key new things that we're seeing here with the R9. When it's available for sale and we've got more information about release dates and all that kind of stuff, I'll of course keep you guys posted as well. I know you've been asking about the comments. I'll definitely keep you guys posted when all that is available. And so, Yeah, thanks for just kind of spending some time hanging out and taking a look here at the Uniden R9. Let me know if you have any questions. There are things that I can cover in future videos and in the full review, etc. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you in the next video.